Effectively scheduling resources for a professional services firm like an architecture or engineering company means that you need to understand the value of your team's time and how that time is going to affect your firm's revenue and how it's going to affect the budgets of your projects when you schedule it. So you're balancing a few different things. One, because your team's time is your inventory, if you're not spending it, then you can't invoice for it. So like inventory, if it sits on the shelf, you don't get anything for it. And this is especially true in professional services because it's not like after a month of not spending people's time, you get to store it up on the shelves and use it the next month. There's a finite amount every single day, every single week, every single month that you can spend. And if you don't spend it, you lose it. So the first thing that you're trying to keep in balance is whether you're scheduling people as much time as you think they're capable of working on billable projects so that they earn the amount of revenue that you need to not just keep your company afloat, but make it profitable. To understand whether or not you're doing this, you should have a good handle on what your firm's overall cost is and a healthy expectation of how many hours a person on your team can realistically bill toward projects, and make sure that you have a good ratio of the amount that they could earn if they work all the billable hours they're expected, and that's going to be enough to cover all of your costs and then still create some profit in your firm. That's the first thing to understand and to be able to see. As you're scheduling time for your team members in resource scheduling, you want to know that they're hitting that billable expectation or percentage. The second thing to keep in balance is the budgets of your projects. Most architecture and engineering firms do work on either a fixed fee, or if they do it hourly, there's usually a not to exceed amount or a limit on how much they can bill for hourly work. So it's really important that your team members not schedule more time than you actually have budget for, because then they'll work more time than they actually have budget for. And even though they've worked that time and you've earned it through the effort, you won't actually be able to bill for all of it because you're over budget. So that ends up actually hurting the chances of you being profitable because they worked more time than you can actually bill. So now you have two important things that you're keeping in balance. Every time you're scheduling hours, you're trying to make sure people are hitting a certain billable percentage of their time so that your firm covers all of its costs and is then profitable. You're also trying to make sure that you're not scheduling so much time that they're going to work all those hours and it's going to go past the budget that you can realistically invoice for, and that those are going to be lost or written off hours. Finally, there's another aspect of the first consideration, which is total capacity. You want people to hit a certain billable percentage, but you don't want them to exceed the number of hours they should work in a week. In the United States, that's typically 40 hours for a full-time person. So there's some in between their billable percentage, let's say that's 80% of their time, and their 40 hours per week, which if you're scheduling them more than 40 hours, they're likely going to be working overtime and not happy, and they may not even work all those hours, so you're not going to get all of that revenue anyway. So in that first consideration, you're really trying to keep people sort of between a billable percentage and without going over their capacity and burning them out. Again, to recap, then the second consideration is, are you staying within the budget that you have for your not to exceed and fixed fee work? The last thing that you're trying to consider is the scope of work that needs to be done, because at the end of the day, if you stay within the budget, but you don't deliver everything that you're supposed to deliver to your client, they're not going to be very happy. The project may not even be able to move forward, and you're going to end up overworking hours in budget or overworking your team's capacity or breaking the first two. So you need to also be able to see how much work there is to be done in any budget phase of your project. That's tasks that need to be completed, milestones you're trying to hit, deliverables that need to be sent over and possibly revised. And so having a way to gather all these data points, both what people's billable percentages should be and their capacity, and how many hours they've been scheduled to know if it's between that. Then also be able to see the budget for your projects and be able to see how much you've already spent and then how much you're scheduling in the future to make sure you're still going to be inside the budget as you schedule hours. And then finally, understand whether you've scheduled enough hours to cover the task work that is remaining, or the scope that is remaining, which means having estimates on those tasks. So in total, you need a lot of data points. You need to know the potential cost of your firm. You need to know your profitability goal that you're trying to hit. So you need to know how many hours people need to work at their typical billing rates in order to hit a good billable percentage that's going to make you profitable. And you need to know every time you schedule an hour, whether you're hitting that goal or projected to hit that goal. Then you need to know the budget for your projects. You need to know how much you've already spent out of them, and you need to know how much you've scheduled in dollars if people work all the hours they're scheduled at their billable rates. And then lastly, you need a task list of the work that needs to be completed in those phases, and you need to know when it's being completed and how much estimated time is remaining so that as you're scheduling hours, you can see the impact on all three of those areas. Factor does allow you to do this. In fact, we have a resource scheduler, for example, that as you're adding the hours, you can see tasks that are remaining, whether you scheduled the hours to those. You can see the impact on the overall project budget. You can even see the impact on the budget for the current phase that you're in as you're scheduling hours. It automatically subtracts out what you've already logged. And it's showing you at all times for each person whose hours you're scheduling, whether you're still under their capacity, but also whether you're hitting their billable percentage. So it does keep all of those things in focus for you in one single view. That's in the Pulse. It's our resource scheduler, which you can view either by person, or you can transpose the data and view it by project. And it's very powerful. And people can learn more at factorapp.com, where they can sign up for a free 30-day trial, or they can sign up for a demo where we can show them how their projects might work in Factor.